you have to learn to love the journey. If you're too much focused on the results or things playing out in a certain way, you'll be disappointed pretty quickly. And especially if you don't have something that drives you, a purpose
Yep.
beyond just the business itself. Starting out, it's all about, I need to get this next milestone. And after I get this thing, like for instance, raising capital, then everything will be fine. And in reality, each new milestone brings its own new set of challenges.
What is going on, LnM family? I got a special privilege today because I'm hanging out with some ballers, plural, two amazing women, the CEO and COO of BuilderFi. And BuilderFi, we're going to learn a little bit about that today. They empower construction SMBs by streamlining cash flow management. And if you're operating a business, how important and vital or painful cash flow can be for you. And so we have Miss Stephanie Del Valle. She has a curiosity in problem solving and a dedication to data-driven decisions, which y'all might know. I like curiosity and data-driven decisions. And then we also have Isabel Rodriguez, who has been out there. She launched a stone fabrication and installation business. And this is where she experienced the pain that contractors deal with around like just getting paid for all the damn hard work that they do. And so if you're new here, I'm Jesse, and we're about to get an inside look at Stephanie and Isabel's path to success and the lessons they learned along the way. And now we're going to get to know Miss Stephanie and Miss Isabel. Ladies, how are we doing today?
Fantastic. Been great.
Yeah. So y'all are in Florida, correct?
Yes.
What part of Florida?
Miami.
Miami. Okay. Everybody wants to know, maybe not. I know I want to know. Salsa. Y'all dance salsa, merengue, bachata?
All of it.
Yeah.
Of course.
I do too. Just a little bit. I was in don't tell anybody, but I was in a bachata performance team for a little while back in the day, about 30 pounds ago. So I know y'all are busy and we got to connect. Stephanie, you and I had a phone call. We connected through LinkedIn. And what really stood out to me was the not just BuilderFi, not just the service that y'all are providing, but how y'all got to this point. And so can y'all talk about how the two of you got connected? Like, what's the story between y'all two? Because I don't think you're sisters, right?
No. And maybe I can give you a quick story and then Steph can add a bit more. But yeah, so as you mentioned, I was a contractor myself and grew a tile and stone fabrication business for a couple of years and faced a lot of what we're trying to solve. But then after that, I actually went to Atlanta and got an MBA at Georgia Tech, which is where I then spent about 3 years in technology, basically working with financial services companies at Salesforce, just helping them build their products. And that's how I also got into the cash flow management side of things and interested in financial technology. And so throughout that period of time of a lot of transitions, I had great friends like Stephanie who were by my side, very familiar what I was going through as a contractor. At some point in time when I was getting my first commercial jobs and I was experiencing getting paid 90 plus days at time, Stephanie and some of my other friends were there to sometimes be my builder guys and provide some help in that regard. So we've been friends for more than 8 years now. We're
Wow.
actually roommates. And so when I
Oh,
got
nice.
into BuilderFi, I started out last year, at the beginning of the year, just thinking about it while I was still at Salesforce working with financial services companies. That was really when it stood out to me how important it is to build products that basically serve underserved communities and businesses. So when I started working on the BuilderFi idea, at that very point in time, I discussed with Stephanie. And after a few months, I already had that a bit more past the idea stage. I joined an incubator program, and then Stephanie was there every time I came back from that incubator program and started working with me more as a consultant part time. And then eventually got so excited with the project that she decided to join me full time later in the year. And so Stephanie also had this great supply chain optimization and fintech experience. She was at a fintech company at the time. And so I was resorting a lot to her in terms of what do you think about this? And it was so very organic for her to join me.
So, Stephanie, is all that true?
100%. I mean, for me, it was a very natural transition because I was working, as Isabel mentioned, as part time or more of a consultant role. And I was not 100% in the business at the beginning at the ideation and prototyping stage. But then after I was looking at the problem a little bit deeper, and of course, as Isabel mentioned, I was there with her when she was going through her previous business. I was there with her in the going to the actual project. So I knew that it was a big problem. And then I went deeper into reviewing how it looks like today. And it was still a problem. So it was something that definitely caught my attention. It was natural for me to say, yes, I want to jump into this. I want to solve this as well. And I think one part of the story that Isabel is that we're both from Colombia. We're actually from the same city in Colombia. We met here in Miami.
Oh, that's
So it really hits home and want to help people that are related to our culture. So that's also something that caught my attention and that I wanted to bring myself into. Definitely.
there's a couple of things that I really appreciate about what you're doing and your background. I was raised, me, my brothers, my family was like, don't start a lot of problems. Like, just be grateful for whatever you get. And while I believe that to be kind of a good way of thinking in business, if that's what you do, you will not be in business long. If you're just grateful for getting paid in 90 days and getting paid a percentage of your full billing and like renegotiating at the end to actually be compensated for your services, you cannot sustain a business. And so the fact that y'all seen and experienced that firsthand, and you're you providing a solution, a service to help people overcome that. And like another end, just the natural warmth that I'm feeling from you guys right now in this conversation, I'm sure you're having the same connection with a lot of the folks that you're interacting with in terms of helping them with their deal. Because there's a certain way we talk depending who we're talking to, right? I'm in San Antonio, Texas. I can go anywhere and not know anybody. And there will be, I go to there's this Tito's restaurant that I love. Man, they got amazing habanero nachos. And every now and then there'll be a lady in there. She'll say, "Oh, mijo, go ahead. Like, go ahead. I'm waiting. I'm waiting, picking up my delivery. Go ahead and sit down." She don't know me, but she's calling me mijo. And I'm not her son, but it's just that little commonality, that nice little thread that helps us form some meaningful connections. So along those lines, in terms of, I mean, y'all have been your feet first, all in. This isn't a side gig, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the touching stories that y'all have been able to experience from like concept to launch to where we're at now? But before that, we're going to give the LnM shout out to Miss Andrea Pearson. LnM family member Andrea sent me this awesome message that kind of got me hyped up. She said, "Your show is absolutely phenomenal. I love your humble, enthusiastic approach to construction, business, and work in the trades. And I appreciate the interviews, but I also love your solo casts. It's good to hear just from you too." That made me blush a little bit because I'm getting all the attention in that one. Folks out there, LnM family, I love the comments, the stars, the likes, the shares. Send me a comment, send me a review, any and all the above so that I can celebrate you in a future conversation.
Well, I think it would be great to touch upon what we've experienced, but then also I think it's really important what gives it all meaning, which is when we can see a customer that we've helped past just providing capital and more, how can we see their business growth and their personal situation? So I would start with the business, and I think all entrepreneurs can agree to this. It's you have to learn to love the journey. If you're too much focused on the results or things playing out in a certain way, you'll be disappointed pretty quickly. And especially if you don't have something that drives you, a purpose
Yep.
beyond just the business itself. And so I think that's really what pushes you through all the different stages, which all of them have their own difficulties. A lot of the time, people, when they're not yet entrepreneurs or are starting out, it's all about, I need to get this next milestone. And after I get this thing, like for instance, raising capital, then everything will be fine. And in reality, each new milestone brings its own new set of challenges. So I think it's all about learning and embracing them. And so for us, last year, it was just an idea. So getting something like this off the ground is not easy because we have two components to it. One of it is the technology component, and then the other one is financing. You want to bring
Mm.
financial products, then you need to have some capital to deploy. And so in our case, we've explored all that we have at our disposal to make sure that we brought this solution and added value to our customers from day one. So a lot about forming partnerships very early on. That can be a big resource when you don't have necessarily big amounts of capital to deploy. And so leveraging a lot of those partnerships to get the product out there. And so we actually launched 4 months ago and have a handful of customers that we've been working on to just get them from point A to point B where they didn't have access to capital. They were struggling with their businesses, sometimes resorting to solutions that left them worse off, and just
Yep.
learning a lot about them. For us right now, it's a lot about working very closely with the customers that we have onboarded. It's not a lot about necessarily going out there and growing like crazy at this particular point, but it's all about getting to know our clients very deeply so that we can make sure that we're building what really works for them.
My goodness. So, did I hear you right that y'all launched 4 months ago?
Yes.
So I've been like you just do. It's so exciting, man. I'm lucky to even be a part this early on y'all's journey. Okay, so I want to go a little further back. Like y'all launched, congratulations, because that's that, and I absolutely love your advice of like focus on the journey. Because sometimes it's a long, lonely road, and it may work, it may not work. Nobody all of that's not easy. But before that hard part, there was another hard part. And I'm assuming, because I know I had this problem, making the decision to leave behind an assured paycheck, right? Leave behind the security of somebody else doing the business development, somebody else doing the follow up, somebody else doing the QC checks. Like they don't have, like, all I had to do was this one thing, and I was going to get paid. I was going to get my check deposited every other week. And you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to go start this thing that I don't know for sure anybody's going to like, anybody's going to buy. And I'm not going to get checks anymore. Like the only way I get money is by going out there and delivering some kind of value. And I still decided to say yes. Y'all did the same thing. What was that like? When you knew you had an idea, I feel like there's 3 points. We have an idea, then we know that you absolutely have to do it. And then you actually take all the steps to go all in. So what was that like in terms of saying, yep, we got to do this, and then saying, okay, that's it, burn the bridges, we're doing this thing 100%.
Yeah, so I think I'll start just because I started a bit earlier and then Stephanie joined me in this journey. So I'll walk you through that exact moment where this was just an idea I was playing with at the beginning
Yeah.
for me. So I was at Salesforce at that time. So definitely a very good job. My experience at Salesforce was a great experience where I grew a lot. I think coming from always being a small business owner and then working in a big company for the first time ever, it really opened up my perspective in so many ways. And so I was actually very happy in terms of where my career was growing at Salesforce. But then as an entrepreneur, that you always have this deep inside you that no matter what, you're always thinking about new ideas. And then I just got as that it was time to go back to entrepreneurship. It started like a small voice. And then all of a sudden, I came across a program, an incubator program from the city of Miami, which was exactly for people who just had an idea and just were looking for a group of folks to share ideas with and kind of get it off the ground. And so it was 300 of us when we started that program. By
Oh,
the end of
wow.
the program, maybe 50 actually made the decision to take it beyond that. But I would attribute a lot of making the decision to go back to finding that accountability group. And then as part of that
Ah,
accountability group, actually, Stephanie, who was my roommate at the time, just having someone to bounce ideas off and evaluate the opportunity. And then at that point, I decided to launch a very simple, minimum viable product, as they call it, MVP. And so for me, when I saw that tangible live site and then spend a couple of months actually evaluating the opportunity, talking to as many people as I could, that's when I just couldn't get off board. I think at that time
yeah.
it was all about like, how can I say no? And it was not necessarily easy to make the decision to go full time, but it was just what I wanted to do. So, and then I'll
Oh,
pass it on to Steph.
yeah.
Yeah,
How
for
about you,
me,
Steph? Was it like super easy? Like, yeah, sure, why not?
the, but for me, it was a little bit different because it's my first time being an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
My previous experience has been in startups and in high growth companies and even global. But it was my first time taking that leap of faith. So it was something that I really needed to evaluate. As you mentioned, I'm super data driven. So I had to evaluate the opportunity. Okay, is this an opportunity big enough? A big pain in the market? Is that true? And then, do I have the skills to make this happen? Can I do it? Am I the right person? Is this the right time? And then, is this the right partner? And Isabel has like, we've been friends for years, and it was like the right opportunity at the right time and with the right person, someone that I trust 100%. And that I think is the most important thing where you're going in this new journey and a new business. It's just trusting the partner that you have. And we can have bad days, good days, and we'll always be back and, hey, this was rough or this was great, and celebrate those successes as well. So for me, that was like the journey, taking that leap of faith and evaluating the opportunity, and also leaving perfection behind. Because
Oh,
as you said, when you're in high growth companies or startups, even if it's a startup, you are hired to do certain jobs. So my experience has been always in strategy, operations, and handling revenue teams. But here it's me doing a lot of different things and wearing many different hats and doing a lot of things that I had no previous knowledge of or experience.
right, right.
So that has been a game changer and something that I still need to work on, leaving that perfection behind and just keep going and just do it, basically.
Just do it. Figure out, do the damn thing because you're going to learn anyways, right? Like if it doesn't work out, you learn. But not deciding is, for me, is the worst thing. So y'all have known each other for years, all the way back to when Isabel had the masonry business, the stone fabrication business. Was it apparent to y'all back then that y'all's different sets of experience, like professional experience, was like a pretty damn excellent combination to launch a business? Did y'all see that, or that happened later?
So I think that's the way I've conducted myself like throughout my life. I've been an entrepreneur since a very young age, always pursuing different types of ventures. And I've always been the one to share with my network. I try to keep close to people that I admire in different aspects. And I always find that just sharing ideas with my closest friends and even other entrepreneur friends brings a lot of value, and I try to do the same. And so for me, it's always about having that set of people that I know can have complementary skills, also different experiences in life. And I always try to bring those to the table. So I would say in my case, I was pretty much aware of that. I mean, from
Ah,
Stephanie and even other friends, I'm always thinking about who can I talk to that has experienced something similar, that has a different type of background, that can share a different perspective with. And that's how I think we're trying to approach in building our own team.
yeah. Oh, how about you, Stephanie? Was it like calculated, or it just kind of made sense? I think it's awesome that when we're intentional about who we surround ourselves with and share our, like doing that knowledge sharing, the bouncing back. Like there's a force multiplying effect when we're selective about it. But so was it the same for you, Stephanie, in terms of like how y'all's relationship began and grew? Like, oh yeah, this woman's got it going on and we got to figure this out.
Check it out, hometowners. So Primo, he's a little bit embarrassed about like asking for some backup, some esquina. And so I want to hit you up and like if you're digging this content, pues give it un like, give it the stars or leave a comment. But if you really, really want to see Primo like get all chiflado, like for the reels, hit him up on the socials, Holmes. Like if you give him a comment in the socials and let him know what you thought about the thing, pues he's gonna light up. But only do it if you mean it, because yeah, you already know how Primo is. Se cree mucho el cabrón. So if you could do that, if you could leave a comment or a rating or the stars or whatever, that would be cool, man.
It's very natural to me, honestly. Like when we started working on this, it was like a natural next step, my perspective. But if you asked me like years ago when she had her own business and I was in a total different industry, I was in a skincare company. I was
Ah,
leading this company in the US and I was doing my MBA. So if you asked me at that time, it wouldn't have made sense. But looking back, I see how all of those experiences that I had in the past, in my past, companies that I worked for and past projects that I worked on, it all combined and made perfect sense right now. So
yeah.
that when the time came to take that decision and take that leap of faith, it was not like, oh, I'm just jumping off the cliff without really thinking about what I'm doing, but it was more calculated. Like this makes sense. And with someone that has had this entrepreneurial spirit, then it might not have been like natural to me because it's my first business, but I've always known that I wanted to be an entrepreneur one day. And I've always worked in high growth companies and startups. So it was always in me. It's
It was
just
there.
that, it was there. It was there.
Oh, okay. Ooh, I got some more questions. But first, like technical question, because I don't know what I said it at the intro and I don't know what it means. The BuilderFi helps SMBs. What is an SMB? I have no idea.
Yeah, so it's small and mid-sized construction businesses. And to
Ah,
be even more specific,
ugh.
we're starting to help subcontractors, especially those who have grown into commercial projects or at least are thinking about going into commercial projects and growing from residential alone, just because they experience a different subset of challenges when it comes
Oh, yeah.
to getting paid and actually financing the cost of labor and materials to get bigger projects. And so we're starting out with that subset of construction small businesses. And that's also led because I was one of those. And so I have a lot of
Yeah.
empathy about what they're going through, how hard they work to build these businesses, and how sometimes these little details in terms of payment terms and contracts can truly derail their ability to grow.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that. Now I feel like, duh, I should have known that. Got it. So here's a fun question. What advice, we'll start with you, Stephanie. What advice do you have for other aspiring entrepreneurs around being the roommate of your business partner?
That's a great question. So, well, I think that I mentioned this before, leaving that perfection behind and changing that mindset of I need to know it all. I need to be an expert in everything. You don't. You have just to try it out and do it and see how it goes. That experimentation and have that flexibility or that ability to change very fast. And
Yeah.
that's what happens every day. Like the idea that we had maybe on Monday, today is not necessarily the same, or we were able to test, oh, this doesn't really work. So having that flexibility. And then I think one other advice that I would have is prioritizing also rest, because it's a long journey. You don't want to burn out and it's inevitable, but it's manageable. So, for
God.
example, in my case, I try to rest at least on Saturdays, but have a little bit of time for myself so I can think and recharge and keep going without necessarily burning out and not looking forward to Monday and things. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that. How about you, Miss Isabel? Advice on being roommates with your business partner for anybody out there that's considering that.
Yeah, so I think that it's actually very popular in startup founders.
Oh,
Look at Y Combinator and those accelerator programs that require founders to move to a city. Usually, founders move together in an apartment, and that's kind of where first few months of startup building happen. Literally, night
ah,
building together. So I think it's very popular in startup founders. It makes sense for a few reasons. One of them is a lot of the times you have limited capital, and so you try to maximize resources
yeah,
as much as possible. And so sharing a space for both work and living, if you have that possibility, of course, people have different situations in life and start an entrepreneur at different stages of their lives. So that's obviously not applicable to everyone. But if you do have the opportunity, then it makes a lot of sense for startup founders. I can see how it's not so popular in other business ventures. I don't see myself living with, for instance, some of my construction business partners.
yeah,
We were all in different stages in life, and that wouldn't be necessarily even required. But I think what's special about startups and the technology companies that are created from scratch, and you have to build and architect something that doesn't exist, it's
yeah.
intensity that's required, and a lot of the times, the first few years, you're with your co-founders day and night. So
That makes perfect sense. So, like Stephanie said, you have an idea on Monday, but by Friday, it's transformed and evolved into something. But because you're in close proximity, you can kick through and iterate and test and evolve that idea super rapidly because you're sharing space. Duh. Again, duh. Y'all are teaching me a lot. Thank you for that. So you mentioned Y Combinator and this group, the incubator group. And so I imagine that gives you access to like mentorship and other people that have experience in the same space, having dealt with the same types of things, which I think is brilliant, right? Like folks out there, if you don't at least have a mentor or somebody that resembles a mentor and a community, meaning a group of people that can feed into your idea, feed into your growth and challenge you, you're slacking. Like you can make that happen. You don't have to start your own business to make that happen. You can do that right now. In terms of paying that back, and I mean on a personal level, how do you, Isabel, how do you either now or foresee helping, nurturing, grooming, supporting future entrepreneurs or folks that are earlier in their entrepreneurial path?
yeah, so I think that's something that I've tried to do always, even when I was younger, maybe at university and exploring all these different paths. I think in everything that I've done, I've always tried to keep back. And speaking of incubator programs, we actually went through Techstars. So we didn't go to Y Combinator, we went through Techstars. And
Got it.
they have this very nice principle, which is give first. And I think that's pretty much aligned with the way I think about this, in that when you've been through a journey, you don't really know who's watching. And a lot of the time, especially because we're talking about Hispanic and kind of other
Mhm.
communities, I always think about that and try to help anyone who reaches out or even doesn't, in terms of either going for something I've done. So speaking of Texters, a lot of the times, once you've done one of these programs, other founders that are interested in these programs will reach out and ask you questions, whether that's on how to apply or how the program works. And so I think that's one of the ways where we're already giving back. And I think even through our work at BuilderFi, it's a lot about, I try to share with our clients a lot of my experience past what our platform offers and the services we offer, but more like what I went through. I think in my case, I've experienced it myself with mentorship, where many times through mentors, I've learned life lessons that have maybe prevented me of making a mistake that
Mhm.
I would have done if I didn't get that advice at that time. So I always try to share from what I know. And if I don't know the answer, then maybe connect that person to somebody that I think would know the answer.
I love it. I love, because that's what I think what I love about what you just said is you're actively sharing your experience and the lessons that you've learned in whatever way possible, right? Like you don't have to be the unicorn to start helping people. You can help people right now, and you're doing that, which I think is phenomenal. Plus, the TechStart incubator that y'all were a part of, the fact that it's part of the deal is phenomenal. Because I don't know about y'all, but I personally, one of my core values is generosity, because I know the more I give and serve, the better my life is. And by life, I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about fulfillment, relationships, rich, deep connections. Like when I'm generous, when I'm being greedy, it's not as awesome. So how about you, Miss Stephanie? Is that something that was like, yeah, we need to make that a part of us for our personal development? Where do you land on the sharing your gifts and talents with the world?
It's something that I think we have been doing even since the beginning, where we had very little idea of what we were doing at the time. So it's funny because it's just sharing your story and the journey as it goes. And as you grow and as you keep learning stuff, and especially we learned so much during Techsters. We had incredible mentors, incredible cohort and fellow entrepreneurs that we just learn so much that we just can't keep it to ourselves. We just need to share it. As Isabel mentioned, whenever somebody come up to, let's say, we're showcasing somewhere, there's an event or somewhere, and people just come to us, and we just take a second and talk to them and answer their questions and just connect them to other people and to our network. And it has been just an incredible journey for us to also be able to share with everybody else. And especially in Miami, I think the ecosystem is very small. So it's still small. So
Yep.
that's also a positive thing in a way, because you can connect with a lot of people and make meaningful connections as well, and really help, not just say that you're going to help, but really do it
Right,
and
right.
connect with the right people.
Yeah. Like for real. Don't just say, hey, we should connect sometime. Come on, man. Like, are we going to do it or not? Don't be playing with me. All right. So y'all mentioned that y'all are, I don't know if you're there or about to be at a point where you start hiring people for the team. And I'm just going to be full disclosure. And of all the things that I did well and did poorly in all my years, hiring people is what I sucked at the most. So, do you have any like cheat codes or secret weapons that you're going to use to hire freaking awesome, amazing talent that fits in with your vibe?
Yeah. So I think, and I mean, I've also made so many mistakes throughout all the different mentors I've had. I think it's one of the hardest things as an entrepreneur, but at the same time, once you learn from your lessons, you realize it's simpler than you thought, and it's more about judging the character of the person joining you versus skills and so many other things that I believe we overemphasize on when
Yep.
looking for talent. Things like whether they have good judgment, whether they're reliable, and those are things that are really hard to test in an interview or two. A lot of that you learn once you hire them. And so I think with time, you end up developing your own kind of playbook of how to get a sense for people. And I think that's something, even with our small team at BuilderFi and this time, that's something we've tried to do. Just develop maybe a bit of a personal relationship first, because I think in the case of startups, like those first few hires or people that join you very early on are so important, because they're gonna have to wear so many different hats that go beyond their specific skill set. So a lot of the times it's about who's gonna have the grit and the flexibility to help us get to our next milestone.
Oh, I like the way you combine grit and flexibility, because you gotta ganas, right? You gotta get down and make that damn thing happen. And you got to be flexible because sometimes you're just banging your head against the wall and it ain't going nowhere. You got to be able to adapt. So, okay. Well, I got another. Am I asking too many weird questions?
No.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm like, this is amazing for me. When you had to make go through the steps of shutting down your stone fabrication business, what did that feel like for you? How did you cope with saying, okay, I gotta be flexible here. I gotta stop and go a different direction. How did you make it through that?
Yeah, that was actually very tough. And I think over time, as with anything, you develop the skin to deal with it. But at that time, I was much younger. It was my first, I would say, company per se, because prior to that, I had many other ventures were more like straightforward. It was only me and maybe another person. And so it was the first time where I had to deal with operational costs and accounting and so many things that go past just executing on the business. And so in my case, I had both a warehouse where I was fabricating, and then I had the construction installation business. So one of the things that led to the closure of my business, and actually one of the biggest lessons learned from that experience, is that I had two parallel businesses in one, where
Yeah.
the warehouse and the fabrication facility had its own performance indicators, as in terms of like, hey, you need to have this operational all day, cutting as many stone as you can in order for that particular business to make sense. And then on
Yep.
the construction side of things, as there's just so many other things you need to deal with, which is seasonal workers and
Yep.
insurance and how to calculate and estimate a project correctly. And at that time, I was new to the construction industry. Even though I came from a construction family, both my dad and my brother are in construction back in Colombia, so always familiar to it. But it's having your own business is an entirely different thing where you have to learn about everything. And so it was definitely hard while I was doing it, and even harder to let go because I had invested so much time and energy and I had learned so much and I had grown to love the business so much, the customers, the projects. I think there's no better and thrilling I
Yeah.
feeling than what you get when you finish a project and you see it. That's one of the most beautiful things about construction. You get to see when you build. And so it's
Yes.
definitely hard. And then I had a business partner and I had so many things. And getting all those things sorted when you close down a business, apart from what I just described, it's definitely tough.
Oh, I applaud you for making the hard decision because it was probably an element of self-care and wellness there that was not being totally fulfilled. And so, Stephanie, you being a caring friend, what was it like for you to see, man, girl, you're struggling over there? Like that don't look like fun. And then watching or witnessing that transition, the exit of that business.
Fun. Because actually, like a friend, I just wanted to help her, wish that things would have been, let's say, smoother, right? Because as Isabel mentioned, she used to work in this beautiful projects, and I actually learned to love it as well.
Yeah.
Because I would go with her to the job sites, and it was tough, definitely. But I think what I admired most of Isabel's as a person is her ability to just, I would say, transform herself
Ah,
every time, like learn and grow and just complete different thing or just transform it into something better. So she took this hard decision and she was so graceful about it as well. And then said, okay, I'm going to do my MBA and then I'm going to move into tech. And she just took this decision and made it happen again and again. So it's this ability to just transform herself into something even better, larger, stronger. So
wow.
that's how
And
I see it.
nah, inspirational. That's awesome. And you were there too. So applause to you. So before we get into the last closing question, if one of the LnM family members out there knows a contractor, somebody in the construction space, small to medium sized business that is looking for some support or help on their cash flow stuff. BuilderFi can help, yes? Where do they go? Do they call Stephanie? Do they call you, Miss Isabel? Is there a website? Like, where are all the places that people can go to connect with what you guys got going on?
Yeah, so absolutely. Our website is www.builderfi.com. But if anyone is on LinkedIn and from your amazing community wants to reach out directly to us, my name is Isabel Rodriguez. Please do so. Reach out on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to talk to contractors, whether that's to discuss how BuilderFi can help them, but then also even connecting. As I said, I'm someone who really values connecting people. So sometimes it's not necessarily with what we offer, but I just love meeting contractors, learning about their businesses, and just serving the industry in any way that I can.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And so what I'll do, I'll make sure, folks, I'm gonna in the show notes, we'll have the link to the website. I'll put Stephanie and Isabel's not Instagram, LinkedIn link. So y'all can connect and one, you have super inspirational story, like personal story. And two, you got some real value to help this industry with, and this industry needs that. So folks, hit them up. And so now it's time for the closing question. And here it is. What is the promise you are intended to be?
As a business or personally? Or
Both.
Well, I think as a person, I just want to be able to share my gifts and any and every gift that I might have with the world. I think a lot of the times we tend to quiet ourselves and maybe are shy to share what we think or our talents. But I've grown to realize that doing that is actually preventing others from being helped or being having access to something that might work for them. So for me, it's like, how can I share this with as many people as I can in any way. So that's my personal mission. And then in terms of the business, we are trying to solve a big problem, which is slow payments in the industry. And that can be solved in so many ways, whether that's through financial products that give access to contractors for short term capital or long term capital that they might need, which is kind of the space where we're at. How can we make these contractors have better options out there so they don't have to resort to pricey, maybe MCA loans or things that don't really help their business grow? And then how can we build a tool that gives them clear and straightforward views of their project cash flows, which as a contractor, a lot of the times I was always juggling from one job to another. And sometimes it's hard to really see which job is profitable. And you end up mixing everything up. And so for me, it's all about how can we give them access to better financial products, but then also the power to grow their business by understanding their financials.
Oh, you gave me flashbacks because when I was in the trade, I came up as a plumber. And so I was a superintendent for all. And I remember there was a period of time where it was like everything I looked at was a damn spreadsheet on the P&L statement for each project. And there were 12 projects. And like there were times where it's like, no, that's a different, what are you talking? We don't have that much money in the budget. Like, yeah, we do. Like, oh, that's the other project. Son of a good. Anyways, I love it. Awesome. How about you, Miss Stephanie? What is the promise you're intended to be?
My case, personally, I just want to make an impact, leave something good in the world. And as a business, I want to empower every small and medium sized construction business to make better financial decisions. That's
Yeah.
it.
You say that's it like it's a small thing, but that's a
It's a
huge
huge
thing.
thing. That's a big promise.
Yeah, I love it. And I think it's easy for people to get distracted on the idea around funding and capital and operating the business and cash flow. But for real, when those things aren't smooth, life is hard. Life is stressful. Like people lose sleep. People don't take care of themselves. People are disconnected and not present with their family because of the poor, crappy conditions around billing, invoicing, and getting freaking paid.
Yeah.
And y'all, BuilderFi and you two women are going to be helping transform people's lives like for real, enhancing their quality of life. And I'm grateful that y'all gave me some time to talk to you and let me be goofy and didn't like shut me down and slap me. Did y'all have fun?
Yeah,
So
not so fun.
Dang, you stuck around all the way to the end. And I hope the reason you stuck it like all the way through was because you were getting a lot of value out of the conversation. I always give at least one, most of the time, a handful of good nuggets, good ideas, good perspectives that I can take and apply into my life going forward. That's the whole point. I want to share that with you guys and also highlight the amazing people that they are. And I want to end this by saying, if you feel like you've been living out a script that was written for somebody else, and you feel like you're in the wrong skin, I know that life. And all I did was numb myself to make it through to another day, which if you're there, you know how hopeless that feels. I want to recommend that you check out Becoming the Promise You Are Intended to Be. The stories in this book will help you know that you're not alone. They're my personal stories, like the real stuff that I went through, and I'm sharing them because it helps keep me sober. It helps me contribute my gifts and my talents in service to others. It helps me turn my failures, my shame, my embarrassment into something useful and positive. So check it out. Be kind to yourself, be cool, and we'll talk at you next time. Peace.